Hello ratbags, it's Jade. Welcome to another ARK Survival Evolved news video. Today we're going to be talking about fixing your game. Yes, we're applying that to ARK Survival Evolved, but mostly we're going to be talking about Primitive Plus today. We are going to be discussing ARK's bigger problems and what I think they need to do to improve the game and the community around it. If you haven't seen recently, the PvP community has been really vocal because there was some issues and drama involving HOD Gaming. I lended a little bit of support to it. I'm glad to say that HOD got unbanned for showing the world that meshing is a huge problem in ARK. Originally the ARK devs did ban him globally and wouldn't let him play the game until we started off this great big campaign to get him reinstated. Agree or disagree with what HOD did, it does highlight the fact that meshing is still a massive issue. But that's for the PvPers. There is another huge side of ARK player base that play game modes like Primitive Plus or just play regular PvE, and they have substantial problems too. So today we're going to be discussing Primitive Plus and why I'm hopeful for the future now that Zed has come out and said he's gonna hopefully try and devote some more time to it. So make sure you like this video if you found it informative, and let's crack on with everything to do with Primitive Plus and the future of the mode. Okay, so Zed put this up a few days ago asking about Primitive Plus options. Whether you've played it or not, I could use your opinion. Check out the topic and reply here or there. Now for a quick recap, in case you've never played Primitive Plus, it is one of the best modes in ARK. I absolutely love the game mode. I was more excited about Primitive Plus coming than I was Scorched Earth. Primitive Plus strips back all the technology. It doesn't have tech rifles, doesn't have tech gear, doesn't even have some of the more advanced guns and technology that you're used to. It gave us different options and different ways to build, more resources and a real focus on roleplay or at least team building. It's a very grindy game and you have to do a substantial lot in it to get the resources needed, and you can craft amazing structures like lumber, and in the past they had other stuff as well like adobe and cement. Now over the years that has changed. Some of them have had to be dropped out because it conflicted too much with the main game, and basically Primitive Plus just has never received the love it should have received during this time. It started off as a mod. It was one of the first to be picked as a mod to be sort of sponsored by ARK or to at least help them develop it, and Zed, the creator, ended up working for Wildcard and he's now the lead community manager. He's also worked on other parts of the game, and in my opinion he is the main inspiration for a lot of the stuff to do with trade, the seeds, the foods that you find in Atlas. So much of what is in Primitive Plus has been expanded upon and popped into the Atlas game. But he's still working for ARK. Maybe he's done his work for Atlas and he doesn't really need to do too much more. Maybe they're taking it a slightly different direction, but it appears his focus now is being on the community leader and maybe fixing up Primitive Plus. He announced also along the side, talking about Primitive Plus, an update for Xbox and PS4. One of the biggest things for the game mode has literally been the way it breaks every time the main game updates. But why is that? We all just give the developers grief. Well, Zed has kind of explained quite a lot. So none of this is gospel, none of it is going to mean that Primitive Plus actually changes, but it shows an intent from Zed that they want to do something hopefully with it. He explains that it's a total conversion and that overwrites the core game files to make it easier for modders that plan on making lots of changes to the core game. It edits those files directly instead of creating copies of them like traditional mods. When the main game is updated, it overwrites those total conversion changes with the main game updates. This means that total conversions like Primitive Plus are hard to maintain because it's essentially creating the mod over with every update. Those who play may notice that's why some bugs always reoccur. So this is what he's been discussing with some of the other team members of Wildcard. Convert it to a mod. Now right now it's not actually a mod, it's a game mode. But if they made it as a separate mod, they'd be able to maintain it more easily internally, they'd be able to update it faster, and there wouldn't be the same bugs that reappear every other update. It'd also load a lot faster too. Negatives would be that a wipe would most likely be needed and potential functionality loss. Just like it has been in the past, some components of Primitive Plus were taken out or just changed so much that they just became basic. I do believe it used to have its own Adobe textures and building pieces, and that ended up being just confirmed over to the new Adobe. I do believe it's been a while since I played. So things like that we may find will lose some functions, we may lose some engrams or some items. He's put here seek free, it's what Xbox uses for loading. Positives, it's faster loading. Negatives, susceptible to issues with total conversions listed above. Now, I don't really understand why that's such a big overreaching thing for Primitive Plus. Maybe there is a huge issue with the way it loads the game. Obviously, maybe that's what causes a lot of bugs, because the game just can't keep up with what's processing. Integrate it into the main game. Positives, it's no longer a separate DLC and enhances the existing Primitive content. And then the negatives is that it loses the specific mode. I think this is probably the worst idea. ARK is definitely a big game for lots of different people, like the PvP crowd, like the PvEs that like just taming, and the people that just like building. With this idea, he's hoping to maybe just put all the engrams that would kind of work in the main game and have it as extra engrams that you would unlock. Now, some of that sounds good. Imagine having wood lumber as a building piece. That would be a really good fit for what's gone on with the Homestead update, and lots of builders and lots of PvE players would be really happy about having something brand new, like a whole new building set. But I think we would lose a lot of the value from the items because it would be mixed up with all the tech stuff. I think a lot of the items would just never get used because there's already the same sort of versions in the game, or we would lose so much of the mods being put into the main game, it really just wouldn't be worth it. And then we've got let the community maintain it. The positives, the community can deem where it should go. Negatives, I'm sure there'll be a lot of logistics to figure out the right way to get this done. Now with this, I'm pretty sure he means handing it off to some more modders. Maybe there are some passionate modders out there that want to run with this and see where they could take it. Maybe they could work on updating the game. Possibly being part of the sponsored program that they have for modders where they pay them money every month. But either way, they're the 4 things they're thinking about currently. Can we offer anything more? I'm going to leave the link for this. Please go and comment on what you think about Primitive Plus. Or go ahead and leave it in the comment section here. I managed to convince Zed to give me a follow, and all it took was the promise of no zucchini pictures. I'm going to be sending him some information about ARK in general rather than just Primitive Plus, because I think this obviously does the job for me. But truly, Primitive Plus was one of my favourite game modes. It's now, still to date, one of the most popular playlists on my YouTube channel. I basically opened up a server with my rat bags and we went ahead and built ourselves a nice little community, and it was great. We did that on the PlayStation a good while ago now. As well as that, I've done plenty of videos explaining different components of Primitive Plus, how to use certain things, and all the times that it was meant to come out and got delayed, or any other issues that happened with Primitive Plus. I would love to return to this. If this was to get some love, I would make this my real good go of content and actually do a full let's play on it. So if you've never played it, or maybe you do and you don't really see the problems, what exactly is wrong with Primitive Plus? Now this is only one Reddit post by someone called Bibba Teddy, but this was only a month ago and he basically went on a big massive rage on Twitter or the forums and ended up getting banned. But he does have some really good information about some of the bugs and the issues. Mostly it centres around a lot to do with the creatures and saddles. It's always been the way. Primitive Plus came out in July 2016. It's always been updates behind regarding new creatures. Now during early access it wasn't a big deal. We realised that obviously it needed to take some time to add new stuff going. And during that time though, Zed was pulled to work on all sorts of different things. He was in charge of the modding community for a while, and so it would often be months before we got the right saddles for creatures. And you're thinking that's not maybe necessarily a huge deal, but already where the game is quite hard, Primitive Plus doesn't allow you just to go and tame things as easily as the base game. Having that choice in lots of different creatures really matters to some people. It's also been problematic whenever you ran Primitive Plus on another map. Initially, Scorched Earth, they said they were going to try and get it implemented, and it took a hell of a long time for that to actually happen, but now I'm pretty sure you can do, or it's fairly easy to do if you rent your own server. Some components still don't work correctly, and I'm not too fussed about it working on other maps. I totally understand sometimes that mods aren't going to work on every map, and if that's the case with Primitive Plus, that's okay. But what this post does highlight is that is still an ongoing problem with saddles, as well as a whole range of placement issues. TPs are being used to cheese on official servers in PvP, and lots of the creatures don't seem to have some of the abilities that they should have. There is definitely a lot more than that, but I don't really want to make this I'm gonna moan about every single problem. But for the longest of time, some of the more basic things from the Primitive Plus mod just weren't working correctly, and it really ruined the game. Wildcard have updated Primitive Plus eventually, adding lots of things from TLC 1 and 2 in a big massive update. Well, that again was a massive long time ago. So it'd be really cool, really interesting if we can get some sort of way forward for Primitive Plus. Going over some of the replies and some of you ratbags that I recognise, It's MT Angel says, I would vote for adding it to the main game, but what if that were to happen? What would happen to those who are running Prim Plus servers? Would they convert? Would we lose items due to change? Said replied back to this one saying, good question, I guess in theory you could preserve the total conversion, release it to the workshop, then Prim Plus servers could still run, but it wouldn't receive updates, so those servers would be stuck on that mode forever. But that is the long and short of it. What is going to happen with Primitive Plus? Do you want it to be part of the main game? Should they convert it more into a special official mod? We'd wipe all progress on them servers and you'd end up having to really take on that we might lose some functionality, some core features might not necessarily be there, but it would run better and we would get updates for the content that's being added in the future. Or should we pass it off to the community and hopefully get some modders to take control of it and give it some more love? Primitive Plus really was a good testing ground for how they would implement more mods into the base game in the future. It's taken a while to get Structures Plus there, but I'm hopeful that in this next year, Wildcard have said they're going to be adding more content and that we're going to hopefully see some more mods come to Xbox and PS4 as playable and integrated into the main game. But it's just a real shame that lots of times there's been so many disappointments with Primitive Plus. It wasn't working correctly when it launched on PS4, it had multiple delays come to Xbox, and it isn't even a game mode on Nintendo Switch yet. A few weeks ago I did a video titled 5 things not coming to ARK ever. It listed pretty much some of the game modes that have cancelled or some of the features they've never put into ARK or have confirmed that they won't be adding. So people looking for things like Scorched Earth Ascension, that will never come. But one of the things I put, and it was number 2, was Primitive Plus content. So I'm really hopeful that I can be proved wrong. I would love Wildcard, absolutely love it if they could do something to finally try and fix Primitive Plus and keep it running up to date alongside the main game. If they did that, I think it would really enhance the way the game is perceived, and I think a lot of community members would be really happy with it. If you really do get sick of getting wiped out by tech creatures or just loads of shady tactics with all the more advanced stuff in the game, or you just really don't like all the lasers, then honestly Primitive Plus is one of the best game modes. It just offers so much more in terms of role playability or just expanding and trying different things. Originally Primitive Plus was meant to have special roles where you would be someone like a carpenter or a chef, or maybe you'd have a fishing skill, and this would all contribute to you being part of a community and helping and trading, and just generally you would choose a actual skill or specialty. Some of that has gone into Atlas, like I said at the start of the video, and although I'd like to see more of that return to Primitive Plus, I think I personally would settle just for the game working currently as it is. Make sure it's got the different features where it's got the different build pieces, the build style tile sets. Maybe even if they have to make it its own mod, literally just keep it as it is, don't even add any more content to it. But just make sure it's refined and it's working. I don't think we necessarily have to see bunches of new content come to it, I just want to see Primitive Plus actually work. I'll keep you guys up to date what goes on and what gets decided with Primitive Plus, and stay tuned for that overall video talking about what ARK needs in terms of making the community better around the game. But for now, this has been just a call to arms. Go and give your discussion about Primitive Plus in here. I am Jade PG, this has been an ARK video. Make sure you like if you enjoyed it. Also make sure you've got notifications turned on, and come and join my Discord and keep up to date with all the ARK stuff going on, and come and also play on my ARK servers. Until next time ratbags, I will see you later.